Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Halloween episode. Um, while I was waiting for the DMG to release, I decided, hey, Betrayal in the House of the Hill, my favorite board game. I should make a video on that because I can, and it's spooky month. And what I came down with is who is the best character in the game? Well, first off, a little bit about what is Betrayal. Betrayal on the House of the Hill is a multiplayer game, 3 to 6, where characters traverse a haunted manor that is ever changing. They run into great scenarios of doom and gloom as they are locked inside, hoping to find an exit. Each character has 4 stats: speed, might, sanity, knowledge, and knowledge. Though over the course of the game, these stats will be raising or lowering as the explorers uh, as they explore the manor until someone pulls an omen card of one too many and the haunt begins. The base game has about 50 scenarios and I was say wind conditions, not wind conditions for survivors and raiders. Now, in addition, there's the Widow's Walk expansion that I do have, that adds an extra 51 haunts and more items, rooms, vents, and omens to the mix. I will be using that for the video. So let's go to my favorite character. This is Zoe. I love her. She has high speed and great sanity. She's not very strong or knowledgeable because she's 8. But it is because of this high speed and sanity that I really feel very safe at the beginning of the game. And I'm with that speed never dropping, I'm able to explore the manor as I please. Um, because of her physical traits being 1 point above the normal, she actually has a lot more physical hit points and can take a lot more physical damage than your average survivor. In addition, because of her drop off, she can take a lot of physical damage without her ever changing her stats. In fact, the best in the game, which is really funny. However, her mental faculties do suffer. She is very sane, yes, but her intelligence is, I think, the worst in the game before doing all this math. Um, Having that 5 sanity at base and even growing more for the rest is pretty great. I will explain what stats really mean afterwards. Now, another thing she's got a little bit of a bonus for is going first. Well, everywhere character can go first. How going first is determined is how going first is determined is based off of the character's closest to the birthday. Zoe has a birthday of November 5th, which normally means when you're going to be in the month of October, when you're playing this game for the most part, she'll most of the time go first, um, because her birthday comes up next. Unless you are at the start of the month, which then Ox, another character, would go first. His birthday is on October the 18th. But after the 18th, closer to Halloween, Zoe will normally be taking the first pick. And some of her best used items are the revolver, and then for omens, it is the girl and the dog. Really good stat increases there. All right, I'm back with the character spreadsheet. Um, so first, I wanted to look at all of their stats, everything one lined up with one another, for all 4 of their abilities. So the way a character is determined, with their stats, well, um, they have a pip, or I guess like a marker, and that tracks where along that stat they have. As you can see, each of these stats grow not congruent with one another, and they even fall off not congruent with one another. Every single time you gain a stat or lose one, you just go down 1 pip from your starting position. with Zoe here, with her speed, every single time she loses speed, she doesn't actually lose any speed. But it does take her a while to regain back up to where she started off with. Um, versus her other side, like Missy here. Missy's pretty fast to start off with. Actually, she's the second fast in the game to start off with. But when she loses a point of speed, she goes down to 4, and then she goes down to 3. Another thing too is that she actually has less. She has less effective health um, with her speed stat, as when she drops by 1 and Zoe drops by 1, they're still at 4. But then when she drops further to 3, Zoe is still at 4, and Zoe has one more chance to drop it even further, giving her a lot of effective health, which is why you saw that 8 number to begin with. Same thing with her might. So the first way, this is the wrong way, but the first way I look at it is, what if I take up all their stats, add them all together, and just divide them by 8, which is their total stats. Um, and for speed, that came out to these numbers here, giving Flash, of course, the obvious lots of speed, as he starts off with 6 and can get to 8 really pretty easily. And even if he falls, the farthest he falls is 4, which is again still among the fastest in the first rank column, where you're near death. Um, and you find the same pattern continues with the average might. Now, might's actually a little bit harder to come by. A lot of characters can even start with 2, such as Reinhardt and Vivian here. They even start with 2 might. And the only person who goes above 5 to begin with is Ox, our main brawler man. But he doesn't even start at a high might score. It's pretty low on the amount of health points he gets. Can't really drop that far though. Still that strong. So same thing, I added up all of the might scores, divided each of them by 8, and this is the results we get here on the left. And then once again with Sanity, we have Father Reinhardt coming with a strong 6. A bit of a fall off though. Surprisingly, he's not that high in the in the first pip, the pip before the skull. But it's not too bad. It's still 3. Um, but it takes a while for him to drop off that hard. And he, again, just like flashing, gains significance. Uh, Special shout out to, I believe this is Jenny. Yes, Jenny over here. She's got a pretty high amount of sanity to start off with. She doesn't really go much with it. In fact, she is tied with the lowest for her maximum. But even if she takes 1 point, she doesn't fall too hard. But the ones down here, if she starts falling with Sandy, she really starts falling with it. Which is a bit unfortunate. So that's why it does put her in the worst, but not too bad to start off with. And we'll get into why I feel like I was off with this math and what this stuff kind of did for me. But we have some nice standouts for Sandy. Because as much as I say Father Ronhardt's the best, this math was pulling that it was actually Zoltra and Vivian who were sporting the best Sandy, because they don't have a fall off at all, and they only have great room to grow. They match each other's stats, so they were pulling better than average, and we're gonna get into it'll explain why I no longer believe this. And finally, oh, and there's my girl Zoe, starting off with a nice 4th place up here, because again, she starts off with 5, which is the second highest to start off with. And then finally, knowledge. Knowledge here, the best is Longfellow. He's got the best fall off, he's got the best rise, he's smartest. A nice close is Heather here. She's got a bit more of a harder fall off, but she starts pretty high. And even Vivian, she starts a little bit lower, but has less of a fall off, but not as great of a climb as these two. And then we have Zoe. Zoe's not that bright. Her maximum is 5. That's the lowest she caps out of it. Yeah. Um, so then I decided to. I should have actually explained what each of these stats do. I mean, so speed is used for making speed checks, as well as this will be the amount of tiles in the manner that you can move at a time. Um, so you could get pretty pretty good with about four. Seems to be the good average here. But there are some slower characters here at three, and falling off, it really sucks, especially in the later game when you might want to run away, but you might not always have to. So it's not the worst. Might will mean choose might checks as well as just a basic attack against someone during the haunt. A lot of the haunts use might, but not all of them. But you might need to brawl and beat up some other creatures. So having good, decent might. It seems like three is about the average here, where fours and fives are somewhat rare, but then the twos for the elderly here. Okay, Vivian's not elderly, but yeah, the old people tend to be a little bit weaker. Actually, never mind. Zoltra's ready to scrap. She's got a four in that. Um, Sandy will be made against any sanity checks. It's mostly a passive. There are some ability that will be used with sanity, like the ring, which allows you to attack with sanity instead of might. Um, but sanity is mostly a defensive trait. But there's a lot more sanity attacks that you will be given around the whole game. So it's pretty important, and when we go into the actual math, you'll see why. And knowledge is more. Again, it's like it's the same thing where it used to make knowledge checks, but a lot of the knowledge checks are now more active, such as unlocking doors, trying to open up things like the vault, the puzzle box. So it's a lot more of an active skill that will. It, I feel like, and I already do this. It had the least amount of defensive, uh, like being in the defensive position, and it does. So it's a lot more of a proactive ability score. So I included when I going over the amount of power, physical points, and mental points, PP and MP. I noticed that Jenny, Reinhardt, and Longfellow actually had a one more score than the others. The green here is their starting score. Um, and they actually could take one more point of damage in their mental traits than most could. Most people come out to 14, but these people had 17, so I give them an extra point for that. Uh, so that rounded me up with these stat averages, adding them all together, and then adding that little extra point to these two, leaving me with Vivian first, then Peter, then Reinhardt in third place. And you can see at the bottom of the list, we had Ox and Jenny, sporting some lower stats on average, and Zoe and Missy. I also looked at what other people thought. The only thing I can come across is a Reddit post. Unfortunately, the user is deleted. But they determined that Peter had the best stats on average in the game, followed by Vivian, then Heather, uh, Brandon, and then going down the list. And at the bottom, we had Jenny at the worst, then Ox, then Missy. So this list is not so far off than my own. The only thing that's wildly different is Reinhardt. So everyone's about 1 or 2 points off, but Reinhardt is a significant drop. Um, and this is because looking at Reinhardt, his physical stats aren't the greatest. He's really slow to begin with, and if he falls too much, he becomes one of the slowest characters in the game. But his might does climb. Every single time he gets a might roll, sorry, speed roll, it does climb up instantly. So that's good. Whereas again, his might really suffers. He's the only person. He starts off with two, and then he goes down to one, which he matches with some of the other characters. But then going down to one is obnoxious. He doesn't have much of a climb either. That first point will get him to four, which really nice, but then after that, you really have to work on it to get him nearly on par with everybody else. Everyone batting sixes, he's batting fives, and it takes a while to get there. Now, for sanity, I would say the best in the game. Math didn't work out the way because he actually doesn't have drop off, but it's a lot easier to climb to the highest and stay there because of you normally have a snowballing effect in the game where the higher your stats are, the more you are likely to succeed. Pretty basic stuff. Oh, right. I was talking about why Reinhardt and ours was so different. When it comes to knowledge, Reinhardt it's got an okay growth, but a big drop off. So you might want to make sure that four stays. Um, but he's got a nice middle of the road there for knowledge. Just make sure you don't lose any. Um, Unlike Professor Longfellow, who takes a while, he can really tank knowledge. So the reason why our numbers are different is because the Redder used a oops, not spoilers, a mathematical method just for standard deviation drop-offs, where it's pretty much two. Okay, it's 2/3 to start off with. Every single number one away from the original. So this two now has the value of being multiplied by 2/3. Uh, so I guess that would make it, I don't know, so the fraction of what it is, right? Same thing for this 4. And then after that, you times each of these, you multiply it by the original. So now it's now 2 to the power of 2 times 3 power of 3. Now it's 4/9 for the next 2 pips away. So it'll be for the 1 and for the 4 over here. And again, it kept on going down like that. What I was wondering is, okay, so this is more accurate, but what if we tailor it to what is the chances of each of these stats growing or shrinking? And then that got me looking into events, omens, items, and the 4 tiles. So I took a look at every single like thing that can happen in the game other than the haunts, to find out what are the chances of gaining and losing stats. Um, how many times it asks you to defend against something, or it gives you a bonus with that particular thing, such as, for example, for omens, we have the spear. The spear will give you 2 bonus physical die for attacking. So that is a physical boon, a physical offense. Um, a might loss or defense against it would be the bite omen. The bite omen attacks you with a 4 um with 4 die, so you need to defend yourself. It's a little bit worse. Um, you have to defend yourself. So I also scaled it too. If it asks you to defend with 3 or less, then I put it in the 1 point. If it asks you to defend with 4, I put it in the 2 columns here. And if it asks you to defend with 5 or more, I put it in the 3 column here. Just to add weight to each of the punches, as well as how many stats asking you to get rid of. Um, 'Cause it could be a lot. When you take sometimes you take a physical die point, it can be 0. It can also be 2. For those rolls, I just put them in the average stat of 1. But sometimes you can get hit with a devastating take 2 die of physical damage, and you both roll up 2, and it does 4 damage to you. That really sucks. Um, but there are also some omens that gain you stats. I mentioned earlier the girl and the dog. These will gain you. The dog will gain you might and speed, while the girl will gain you insanity and knowledge. So I went through every item in the game. Uh, whenever it had multiple options, I just added those as chances of happening, and then also multiple buffs, I also added those as just chances of happening. I thought it would even itself out. It pretty much did. So I guess it's not like a direct one-to-one for the math for those, but there's only so much I can do. Um, so I just listed them all out here. Um, and as you can see, the roof and upper tiles are literally the exact same because there's only one. I could have, to be honest, I could have made them the exact same. But technically the chances are different because the rookery is the only the roof tile. Uh, so that might have thrown off some of my math here. And this is everything that can be a roof tile and everything that can be an upper, everything that can be a ground, everything that can be a basement. So if it shares it, the sharing is going into both of the listings here. I think I've explained everything really well. So here's all my math. Just scroll on by. And then I also thought, what are the chances of rolling events, items, or omens? So because I also wanted to know which floor is the best when I got around here, and what to do. So for the omens cards, one of them can draw you an item, which is effectively pretty good items, but normally end up being good. Omens are a bit of a mixed bag. Events are normally bad. And the roof tiles are genuinely okay. Some good, some bad. Uh, but not too much bad. I think like the worst is probably just the collapsed room. That's probably the worst of them. That's not too bad. Um, so some of the items can give you more items. One of them can give you an event. Uh, and events can sometimes they can give you items. Sometimes they can give you items. They can give you a lot of negatives. If we a lot most of the losses in the game are going to come from events, so you want to avoid them as much as possible. And some events can give you omens, and some events can roll into other events, which is not good for the most part. When you're exploring the roof and upper, that's the rookery right there that gives you an extra item. So I guess I would go for the roof over the upper to explore. But you will find most of the omens actually exist in the upper and roof area, as well as most of the events. So it's a risky gamble going up here. The safest one is the ground floor. You have the lowest of everything, so the lowest items. We also have the lowest amount of omens and events. Actually, no, I'm lying with the events. That brings us into the basement. Now you have lower events because the basement tiles tend to be more dangerous. They're doing more stat losses, as you can see here, more things to defend against, uh, in a bad way. But also, there's more chances to gain stats on this floor. Actually, other than the upper floor is good at gaining sanity. Um, but the lower floor has a good chance of gaining more physical stats, while the upper floor has a higher chance of getting the mental faculties. So that's pretty good. Uh, but you get the most amount of items in the basement. Um, there's 8 item tiles that you could potentially get down there. So that is pretty good. So I put it all on a chart. I don't even remember what I divided it by. Say, oh, by the amount there it was. Okay. So, pretty much, when you draw an omen, the most thing you're going to be losing is sanity. You're going to be losing about zero point 0.4 on average sanity per card you draw. So I guess 1 in every 3 cards is going to drop you sanity for the most part. And that is not the same where it's 50, like 0.5, so it's going to take a while to drop the other stats. Um, but you'll have to make a lot of either defensively if the omen is bad, or even to use the omen. It'll mostly rely on the physical stats and insanity. Um, whereas for items, some of them are acid. I'm gonna drink water. Some of the items will lower your speed. I can recognize the Bloody Dagger is one of them, where you trade in speed for offensive power. Some of them will trade in might, uh, and some with sanity and then knowledge. But some of the items will have you make checks for sanity and knowledge to gain a benefit or avoid a boon. Well, they won't ask you to do that for defense and might. Um, as for the events here, why they're so bad, is the lowest event will pretty much get rid of half a point of your knowledge on average. So one in every two events will try to attack that. One every two events will try to attack your speed, try to take away your might in like three and two every three events, and the same thing for Sandy, where it's three in every four event. Like events will try to get rid of your stats, and for the most part, they're going to attack Sanity. Uh, Now this is not percentage wise; it's more on the weight. So you having higher Sanity will make you less susceptible to losing these stats. Um, that and same thing with might. They're really gunning for those two stats. Half as much so for the speed and knowledge. Um, but this will get into why Sanity's a little bit underrated. Because based off of the weight scale that the other we did previously, um, and how I'm like taking this into account. As for the tiles for the roof and upper, you'll get mostly attacked in your speed stats. So if you're up there, you want to have a good speed to dodge these effects like the attic, tower, and I think the junk room. I think those are the three ones. Those are the three rooms. We have good speed to get through, or else you're starting to lose some of these stats here. Uh, but they're not that bad of losses. As for the ground floor, you actually can lose some speed down here. And it is asking again for a lot of the speed rules. Same with the collapse stream. Oh, the collapse stream is also going to be up here as well. Um, that you want to avoid. But not much furthers. The basement's the real killer here. A lot of the basement tiles are trying to get rid of your speed, your might, or your sanity. They will ask a lot more for sanity rolls down here in the basement, so make sure you're sane. Because stuff like the crypt, I don't think the graveyard can be down here. I know the crypt's definitely one. There's the chasm, but that's more for the speed. There's the furnace room that just will take away a point for ending in that space, which sucks. Um, there's the cave as well. There are a lot of bad tiles in the basement, so you really want to make sure you're buffed and ready to go in there, because they will try to take away your stats on top of rolling for events, so it'll be doubling. So as for offensive, this will be how many gains you get, um, from there. So for omens, you'll get a lot of gains in knowledge, as well as some gains in speed and sanity, and then some in might. A lot of these omens will benefit you from having high knowledge or give you better knowledge. Well, sorry, give you better knowledge would be in this one. Either they benefit from you having higher knowledge, you can use it offensively, or might, such as the spear, like I mentioned earlier. Same with speed and same with sanity, such as the ring. So omens overall, it's not too bad. I'll get into both the stats combined. Same thing with events. I mean items. Not same thing with events. Events is low here. Same thing with items. They will give you a lot of stats on average. Sandy is the most common you'll find. Uh, but they're pretty even. They won't give you a lot of offensive sanity sanity items that you could benefit from from, but a lot of knowledge items such as the puzzle box, um, the camera recorder, obviously all the weapons, the axe, the chainsaw, and then for speed there's the gun, the revolver, and even the double barrel. I forgot what its name was. Um, that'll increase your offensive abilities there. A lot of events won't do this. You have a pretty low chance of rolling into one. There are some events that will give you a bonus in your knowledge, uh, and some will make your stats go up, but it's pale in comparison to the downsides, as we'll get into this side sheet, adding them all together. As for the upper tiles, you actually could gain some nice sanity boosts up here. So you can go to the upper, and then you can go into the basement to try and be able to defend yourself against that, and then start looting down there. And there are enough knowledge tiles, such as the vault, that exist here in the basement. That's the only one I can think of right now that really benefits you from knowledge. And then there's again with all these, there's the basics: the chapel, the gym, the loiter room, the nursery. They're like 8 or so tiles that just bump up your stats because I have the DLC. That's why there's 8. There's only 4 in the base game. Um, and these will roughly you always want to go to them to bump up your stats. So adding both together, we'll find that omens on average will help you in the. I don't even know why I added this roll together. I think most importantly is the top row, which is the stats you'll gain. Might you'll come up with a net neutral, while you'll lose some sanity, but you'll gain some knowledge and speed for trying to collect omens. For items, you might end up actually losing some might and speed if you want to use some of their effects, because they can be quite harmful to them, but you'll gain a lot of sanity knowledge from these items. But you will gain a lot of nice physical power to trade for those drop-offs. Most events will harm you. You're mostly looking at negatives here, unless you have the stats to counteract. But man, it's don't go for events. Just if it happens, it happens. There are some that are optional, and if you have the stat for it, like skeleton, the locked box. There's some events where you gain something out of it, but if you don't, just leave it alone. Just leave the event alone. I guess there are movement events such as the slide and whatnot. And finally, the tiles. So for the most part, again, on the roof and even the ground floor here, you'll gain a lot of sanity and knowledge, but you'll lose out on the other stats. And then you lose out on sanity, especially in the basement. So yeah. We're gonna go now to... So gotta be very careful about... Whoops. Why did it just go back to here? So now we're gonna take everything into account. There we go. Okay, geez, alright. We're gonna put this guy over here and we're gonna get back to talking. Okay, I have to cut off, well, a lot of that out, just because of me messing up. So now, here we go. So, what I've done now is I've taken their base stats, and I've gotten... Actually, I shouldn't start here. I should start... Oh no, I need to scroll up again. Okay. Gotta clap real quick. Okay, so how do we put this all in a practical way? So what I've done is I've taken up both of our methods. So I've gotten the total gain here, and I've divided it by 29, because there are 239. There's 239 events possible that could not happen, well, 31 can. And I've taken that number and I've multiplied it to the power of 2 every single time. So the power of gaining is going to be more on the rare side, where the power of losing is going to, on average, be higher for everything. As I added everything up, and this is what we got. We got 31 to 40 to 64 for speed, 27 to 62 for might, 41 to 64 for sanity, and finally for knowledge we have 29 and 41. And I've added all of them up and then divided it by the maximum, and then every single time it's to the. Okay, I'm messing up with the. There we go. And every single time I've added the power up 2, for every single way away from the first starting position for the stats. Here's the list down here, and then in addition, oh, cool, I landed up. In addition, uh, I've added the offensive power, same thing up there, with the defensive power. And I've also added them for context sake. For the most part, you actually might be using knowledge a little bit more than the other ones, but maybe not always. I think more times than not, because sanity has the highest defense percent chance to happening. 1 in every 5 thing in the game will ask you to make a sanity check, while it's closer to 1 every 7 for the other stats. Actually, that's more 1 every 8. Um, you're more often than not having to make sanity rolls. But for offensive power, might even for the might, it's a little bit actually low because you could punch anything you want after the haunt starts. So these it's a little bit deceptive, but it kind of shows you the weight that everything has in the game. So we've taken the first stat away, which is so for Zoe, the first stat away going downwards is 4. We've multiplied that by the chance up here of it being lowered, and we've added that to their total speed. So there's all their stats are going to be end up being more than what they actually have, but it's going to be representative of their total power from them being weak to them being strong. So I've done the same thing with them being strong, is I've added what are the chances of it going up, and then it going up after it got up the first time, and yada yada yada. Which is giving them their nice averages here. So we've redone it. Now, Flash sports the best speed like always, then Missy again, then Zoe. This is not changed because it's really important to have a high starting off point. And that the system really values it because if you have a higher starting off point, it's really hard to lower stat for the most part. Sanity is one of the things that might actually be lowered by other forces, but that's why it's also important to have a higher sanity to start off with. And as you can see, Father Reinhardt is now taking his proper place as the slowest character in the game, followed by Zultra and Ox. Moving on into the might scores. Obviously, Ox. Actually, let me slide. Obviously, Ox is sporting the best might, followed by Jenny and Brandon. She's got a harder time falling off. She's got a 4 here and then a 3 here, as you can see. And she's got a okay growth. It's not the best, but it stays consistent. Um, which is why she's got this rocking for her. And then same thing with Brendan, he falls off right away, which is why it carries more weight. And they have the higher starting off at 4 versus everyone else starting off a little bit weaker. That's why Zultra is also high. She can come and swing. Even though she's got a fall off, um, it doesn't. It's more about the starting position, which will matter. As for sanity, we now have Reinhardt probably back into his proper place. Again, his start off position is way stronger than the others, therefore he will probably be able to maintain or even strengthen that sanity check. Then Zoe bumping up, moving up, second place for sanity, and same thing for Peter. He's also pretty sane. 4, 4, and 3. Yeah, he's doing his best. And then finally the Ultra and Vine. Vivian, man, I can't speak. And Vivian are now back down to 4th place when they were at first. And then the lowest Sandy is Flash, Ox, and Missy, respectively, which you could have seen in their stats previously. Finally, knowledge. Zoe, not very smart, but smartest being Longfellow, finally taking his place up here. Then going off to Vivian, who has got a nice sporting 5, and then finally third, which is Heather, who also has a strong 5. And it basically goes down the list from there. Really sporting off there. I kept the HP bonus here, but I didn't. I didn't know how to apply this properly into their stats, so maybe that's something we could also be misjudging here. So now with these stats more accurately reflected, who are the best characters? Because Reinhardt here, his physical stats suck, but the 3 is not too far off from everybody else running in the mid tiers here. It's only 1 point off, uh, which is not what I could say for his slower speed, which everyone's running about a 6 to a 5, while he's running only at a 4.5. That's a little bit more of a drop off, but he's championing a high sanity of 9, which is like 2 points away from the second best. And everyone's down here in the 6s to 4, so it's a big sanity jump here. Whereas there's not much of a big knowledge jump. Same thing with the speed. It's mostly keeping the same. Even the best knowledge character is not too far off from everybody else of his tiers. The only one who's really down in the dumps is Zoe. So that's how it's looking like, and now they have proper weights. What were my final numbers? So, starting at the top of our list, we have Madame Zoltra, followed by Vivian Lopez. Peter Okamoto coming in third. Father Reinhardt coming up the rear in fourth. Despite his low physical stats, his mental faculties make up for it. Random Jaspers coming up fifth place. Zoe Ingstorm coming up sixth. Jenny Leclerc coming up seventh. Darrington Flash Williams takes eighth. Heather Ranteville takes ninth. Professor Longfellow takes 10th. Missy Bory takes 11th. And finally, Ox Bellows coming up dead last. We go back to their stats sheet. So here's what I landed on. So they're not, each of the characters added up total are less than a point off from one another. The only people who are staggeringly high is Madame Zultra because of her overall general mental, uh, okay physical and great mental stats. And then followed by Vivian, and then third Peter. I just think there is a lot more weight to sanity, and the game sure shows it. But overall, a lot of these characters are actually pretty balanced between one another. There are some times when you'll find hard drop-offs instead of their stats. I guess Jenny is most famously for her sanity breaking down after the second one. But you could keep it up pretty good for most of the game. So yes, this is my new ranking for what I feel the math agrees more with. Uh, in practice, I'm not sure. I've stuck to my girl Zoe for the most part, and I've been doing just fine with her. But I don't win every game, as the traitor or as the survivors. So maybe I should try Madame Zultra. You know, she's worse in speed, and that really feels bad for me. But she gains 1 more point. She's pretty good. 5 is nice. Her might's doing pretty good. It doesn't fall off too hard. It doesn't gain a lot, but as long as you get 1 point in there, it should be fine. As for her sanity, she's sporting some pretty strong sanity. It can't go down. There's a lot of sanity attacks, as we found out. And finally, her knowledge. It doesn't fall off too hard, nor does it grow, but I think it's more assuming that, again, she doesn't fall off that badly after taking 1 point of damage in each of her stats, and that's what's really important here. And that she's able to withstand a lot of things in the turn. So maybe we'll try her next time when I play. But I don't know. How do you feel about this? I was surprised. Peter. I thought Peter was going to be number one because he's the most balanced of all the characters. But it seems like you don't need a balanced character. What you need is a character that goes against what's most common to them, and what's most common to them are going to be sanity checks. And as well, he doesn't do bad. He doesn't fall off that too hard. Again, I'm still surprised Peter is not number one. Um, so I guess we want a mostly well-rounded character. Peter's your way to go. What does Peter look here? Sixth place, ninth place for might, third for sanity, and fifth for knowledge. Huh. Maybe it's because he doesn't have enough might compared to Zultra, which again, she's batting all of the nice offensive, defensive stats as well. So that's it. That's my list. If you liked the video, give me a like. If you disliked it, give me a dislike. If you wanna explain your thoughts in the comments below, please do. Or subscribe. I mostly do D&D. This is just a spooky month special. Have a good one.